Hello guys, gals, non-binary pals, and waterfowls. It's me, Big Mike, and welcome to the very first episode of the Pond Pals podcast. And joining me today are my co-hosts, the Bird Coach power couple, Honkflap and Iron Duck. Welcome guys and gals.
Hey man, what's up?
Hey bestie. Oh, damn it. We went over each other. Okay.
We can keep that in there, by the way.
Keep that in a hello. We can't say hello. Hi, bestie.
Oh, hey, how's it going? How you guys doing?
Oh man, we are doing the thing.
Yes, all the things.
All the things that can be done, have been done, and shall be done. So today, actually, we wanted to talk about something special. So my bestie Honk sent me a very intriguing video on a series of tips from a Dutch lady on how to simplify your life. So today we're going to be discussing the first 3 tips of that video. And the first tip in that video is known as the Dutch rule of 6s. And now essentially that means that in anything you do, you're going to apply the effort that would get you a 6 out of 10 on a school project or a test at school. And Dutch schools tend to grade on a 1 to 10 scale. How does that sound to you guys? Does that sound like I described it okay?
Yep, that's the gist of it. That is the gist.
And what do you guys think about this?
Okay, well, I've got opinions, and I love this. I love that so much. I can remember from the time I was like in maybe a freshman in high school, and I think it starts earlier these days, but from the time I was like a freshman in high school all the way until I graduated, you got home, you had homework, you had papers to write, you had exams to study for, you had midterms, you had finals, you had all kinds of group projects, you just had stuff to do. And I remember being tired all of the time because I would have to stay up late to get everything done. And this notion that if you can do a 6 out of 10, just a little better than average, imagine how much time that gives a parent to get their child to do these silly things that would help them grow, like fresh air, sunshine, exercise, full night's sleep. So much better, I think, than the hyper-competitive nature of the American school system.
I agree.
What do you think, Ducko?
No, I agree with her sentiment also. Like, I remember, I can see the idea that it's supposed to make it to where the kid, like in school and such, and probably the like person and adult in life, you don't have to like strive so hard to push yourself and get like the 8, the 9s and such like us in America, you know, the A's and the B's and such like that. It's like if let's say you're a kid and you are actually just good at math, you like math, you naturally get B's in math, you may get some C's and like other things like that. Let's say you just kind of suck at science. But because you can't just do a little harder at science to make sure you get that C and not the F, because of how, like, I remember, like, my mom was this way, personally, was that, like, she just expected, like, A's and B's regardless of anything. And so you'd have to, like, push extra hard, like, on the subjects you suck at, just to make it, like, up to par with your folks. And then you don't actually have the free time to turn the natural B you would get in math and enjoy it more and make it into the A that you would like. I can see it being like, and I can see it like letting the kid actually like get there and like be able to enjoy the stuff. Like they, I assume like just going from doing this kind of stuff like in like elementary school, middle school, I imagine by high school, they would probably have a better understanding of what they would want to go to college for if they had the 6 culture where you can kind of just focus on the things you want to focus on and not have to focus on everything to make sure everything is really good. But that's my thoughts.
On the one hand, I feel like this is something that has a great deal of wisdom to it. So I feel like, it can go well beyond this, well beyond just simple schooling and such. But I feel like it has to be something that has to be applied with wisdom. It takes wisdom and life experience to apply it. There's some things you can do this with, I feel like, and some things I would not want to do this with. But overall, I think the sentiment that, American school children are being overworked and they're being deprived, some of the greatest time during the greatest period of their life, it's a damn shame. And unfortunately, where I live at now, it's the same way. Living abroad in Indonesia, I see that a lot of children are, do the same things here. And because of the competitive nature of schooling, there's such a high population here that getting into good schools, getting into good universities, getting good jobs are very, very competitive. So unfortunately, something like that isn't available here in the culture. But it's something that, I feel like would benefit, school children all over the world.
Yeah, well, you know what this also kind of ties in? Like, Bestie, that I talk all the time about how I try to live my life like 80-20. Like I do things really good 80% of the time, and the other 20% of the time, it is what it is, right? And I do that when I'm doing my meal planning. I do that when I'm doing my budgeting. I do that when I'm doing my self-care, whatever I'm doing. I like to have like an 80-20 rule. But, and the internet talks about this a lot in terms of like creatives. But I think the saying is the perfect is the enemy of the good. And I really think it's kind of a cultural neuroses that we have, that everything has to be perfect. I'll tell you, this is may or not be to my credit, but I cook, right? I cook a lot, and I'm, if I do say so myself, pretty good at it, right? But if you saw what I serve my husband, I do not do the plating. I do plating for holiday dinners only, and we have these things that I call blates. It's like kind of a bowl and kind of a blate, and the food goes in the blate, and that is how it goes. The cooking was where I did my 80%. That blate's my 20, man. It's just not worth the headache to make my dinner Instagrammable.
And I think that's a great example of what I was talking about, Bestie. I feel like, it takes wisdom and life experience and, the ability to know yourself, to know, okay, these are the areas that I need to put, 80 to 100% in. And these are the areas that I can, put 60% in. Because, nobody can go at 100% of the time. It's not possible. It's hell on your mental health, hell on your physical health. And at some point, if you do that, you're going to end up facing a burnout. And whatever you're doing, even if it's something you like, you're going to come to hate it. I feel like, taking that into consideration, this rule is a great rule that can help that. Also, it can help people to focus on not just people, but I guess in this situation, students to focus on the areas that they're really interested in. Like giving somebody an area of focus that they really enjoy. Let's say, for example, I hated math growing up. I knew I was not going to do anything math related once I got out of high school. In fact, I was under the impression when I went to university, I wouldn't even have to take a math class. Somebody lied to me, because I definitely did have to take math classes in university. But as far as, young Mike was concerned, no math outside of high school. So what happened? I did what I could in math. But I excelled in the humanities. I excelled in the social sciences. So that's where my passion was. So that's what I focused on. I focused on my literature classes. I focused on history. I focused on geography. And I focused on the non-math parts of science. And I feel like, that helped me out a lot. But I feel like that, if we allowed this if we opened up this system to our children and say, hey, you know what? Find you an area that you're good in, that you can excel at. And, focused mostly on the area, but, you need to be well-rounded, so you can't neglect these other subjects. But, just, apply your 60% there. What do you guys think about that?
I think it's. Oh, I think it's so good. And the other thing is, I think it's actually a life skill. Like if kids, like if we were to reform the education system in the U.S. and go with this Dutch idea, right? I think it would teach kids how to prioritize their time so much better because there are some things. I mean, you can, if you really truly want to, you can sort your socks by color. You can fold and press your underwear. You can do all of these things. And if that's like a vibe for you, then great. But you can also throw your socks in a drawer. It's not a big deal, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you know where the socks are. That's fine. They don't have to be like perfectly laid out and everything. But imagine how much less stress people would be in if we didn't have like just these ideas of how we are supposed to live our lives. And Duck, since you are a millennial here, I would like to ask you this. Do you think that social media has made us more perfectionists because we're trying to live up to the idealized standards we see on social media?
Oh, there's like no doubt. I think there's like even studies proving that like show like people's like I know for like the self beauty thing. I know like what is it, like Instagram? Isn't that the one where people take pictures of themselves all the time? That it like has completely just devastated like younger people's like mental self health and such like that, because they're always like, oh, why don't I look like so and so with their millions of followers? So and so's got like 30 filters on. That's why. I mean, that what was human in that got left 20 filters ago. But yeah, I 100%. I would believe that the changing the how like people the sixth thing is actually would be a pretty solid thing for mental health stuff. Yeah, that, like there's a weird perfectionist thing that runs through, and like, dear God, almost nothing in this world is actually perfect, and it's weird how people will want to sit there and tell you like, no, it's got to be done just right and such like it. Like if it fits in the hole, if it's fine. It doesn't have to be a millimeter space. There can be some daylight between the hole and the thing you're trying to put the hole in. It doesn't have to be perfect.
So that leads me to my second question for you, Duck. How do you feel about eating out of a blade every night?
I love that blade. That blade is the best frickin'. See, now, okay, let me try to explain this in further detail. It's a large, hard plastic dinner plate, but it has like walls like a boulder that are maybe, I don't know what the metric system height would be, but like maybe an inch, all around. So you can just pile food in there, and it's not like it's gonna come sliding off or anything like that. And you can go ham on the gravy.
Go ham on the gravy.
I think the takeaway here that we can all agree on is that,
And you know what? I'll fill the air for a moment. I will say I agree with Mike's point of how that there are just some things you learn in school that you just don't need, like how he was saying, oh, I don't need this math stuff out of high school. I wish teachers would be more like that. I wish I like he was saying that, and I am in my head remembering like this algebra 2 teacher I had in high school my senior year, who was dead set on telling everybody that we are going to be using this stuff when we graduate. Like, we're going to go out in the real world, and we're gonna do this, and we're gonna be using this stuff. Are you really gonna tell me there, woman, in your dress and the no apples on the desk because no one likes you, that we're all gonna be out here busting out all of these formulas and stuff while we're doing just regular stuff at the gas station or whatever? Like, nah, it's perfectly, yeah, we're all gonna go to college. We're gonna need this stuff for the college math course. That's what we need it for. And if I'm going to college to be a dang architect or something, yeah, sure, makes sense. But if I were to go to college to learn to paint good or write music well or something like that. I don't need this crap. You don't have to sit there and tell me I do. You can just be honest about it. Like, look, here, how we do things here, you got scores to meet. You got a test you gotta take. You got the score you gotta meet on it. I'm gonna teach you the stuff so you can pass the test. That's how we do it here. And that's it.
That is so true. That is so true. I always wanted to be that person who liked math. In college, I got A's in the math courses I took, but I bled for those A's. Like, I was grinding until, and you knew me right around that time. I think I'd finished the math portion of my college right about the time we met, but oh my God, I was like just reciting the quadratic equation to myself until like 3, 4 in the morning, and then I was working a 50-hour week and going to school. And oh, Jesus Christ, it was rough, man. Do you remember how many 5-hour energy shots I used to take in a day?
I remember, because everybody was started taking bets on it. People, we bag boys, were sitting there like, 4. Calling it right now, 4. That's like 20 hours. She's only here for like 8, maybe 9 hours. I know. I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying she's gonna have 4 before she leaves tonight. That's my bet. Bet my tip money on it, buddy.
Yep, that's how it worked too. That was the only way I could that's the only way I could make it all of that work or whatever, and it wouldn't have been that stressful if I hadn't needed to take that dumb math class, which has nothing to do with a degree in literature, and B, if I had not been hell-bent on getting straight A's in all my classes.
Yeah. That is like the major thing about how we do college that just drives me up the wall. Me and my never been to college ass. But is that, like when you go to college, it is literally just elementary, middle, and high school all over again, despite how you're going there for a particular thing. Like, you plan on coming out of this several years from now with a sheet of paper that says, hey, I have mastered this particular set of skills that makes me really good at the thing I'm supposed to do. We're just not going to mention I spent so much time and money trying to bleed out passing grades for like a dozen other classes I did not need, because apparently there's a point system thing that is beyond stupid when I'm here for the sheet of paper, not to have numbers etched to my name. If you're going to go for literature, you should totally only have to take the things you would need for literature. You don't need math for literature. Like, that has always baffled me. Like, I could see, like, sciences and stuff, if you want to be, like, a therapist, you're going to need to, like, prescribe people stuff. And so, like, there are, like, some things you're going to need stuff for, but God, no, you don't need, like, math for some of it. Heck, I was actually good at math, going through all my schooling, all the way up to high school. I was actually good at math. The only, like, time I didn't, like, just naturally get, like, high B's, low A's in math was with the one teacher I was talking about earlier, but she also had, like, literally everybody in the entire grade. All, like, 100 and something of us were all, like, barely passing or failing her class at any given moment, so. But then just somehow, like, come the 9 weeks, report cards would pop up, we suddenly are all, like, in the B's and such like that, or C's, where everybody was passing by then. And we're all kind of, like, dumbfounded as to how this was happening. We all had suspicions that she was just kind of, like, mentally torturing us or something.
So, I honestly, I was the type of person, like, I could sit in a class and I could absorb everything I saw, everything I heard. So, I could sit through lectures and never, ever really have to study for none of my classes except for math and foreign language. Those were the only 2 classes I ever really had to apply myself in and actually really push myself to kind of get a decent grade. And I hate algebra. I hated algebra. I passed algebra, my first algebra class, with a D, in my second algebra class with a D as well. I did much better in geometry. I had like a B in geometry, and I also I actually got an A in statistics and probability, which was the only math class to this day that I ever actually really enjoyed. So yeah, I didn't really get like what's the point. Or when I was younger, I didn't really get the point of those. Now I kind of understand. I can kind of appreciate them a bit more. Like, I think it's good to be a well-rounded individual to know a little bit about a lot, but also I feel we need some there needs to be some practicality there as well. There needs to be some practicality in what's being taught to. Like, I don't get me wrong, the Pythagorean theorem is very important. It's very, very important, but also I think students should be taught the formula for interest, for example. I think, that should be taught too. So
well, I'll tell you this, Bestie. The Pythagorean theorem. You said that, and I got triggered. I do, in fact, know that a squared plus b squared equals c squared when finding the hypotenuse of a triangle. I have waddled around this planet for 5 decades now, and outside of a math class, I have never had any need to find the hypotenuse of a right triangle. It has never happened. It just never has that been a thing. In architecture, sure, but do I look like an architect? No.
All right, so now before we move on and start talking about the next point, do you guys have anything you want to add?
Nah, I've yapped enough on that.
Yeah, same. I'm good to go.
If I don't bring myself in, I'll yap for the next 6 hours.
I will use the air horn thing on Discord.
So, at the end of the day,
Probably have to.
The Dutch rule of 6 is a great way, can be a great way or a great piece of wisdom to add to your life, to kind of revolutionize how you do things and how you spend your energy. But it takes wisdom, it takes life experience, and it's going to take some self-reflection to know when and where to apply it. And no one size fits all. It's going to be different from every person. So if this is something that interests you, think about it. Think about where you can apply it and where you can't apply it. The next thing we're going to talk about is how the Dutch handle birthdays. Now, this was actually a very interesting one for me because I can actually see the cultural impact of this where I live. So, for those who don't know,
cool.
In Dutch culture, when it's your birthday, people don't buy you cake. People don't take you out to eat. You are expected to bring your own cake. You are expected to bring or take other people out. And where I live in Indonesia, that's the culture here. So I'm not sure if the Indonesians got it from the Dutch or the Dutch got it from the Indonesians, but that's the culture. And so that's something. It was shocking at first, the first time I tried it, or the first time I encountered it. Like, so it's his birthday, but he's the one taking you guys out. And so it's like, yeah, Michael, that's how it works here. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And thanks to the lady in this video, I can really see, I can better understand the wisdom behind this. But before we delve into that, I want to ask my co-hosts what they think about this. So, Aaron, what's your thoughts on this?
When I actually saw the video and she was talking about that was like hard for me to get my head wrapped around. And it was a thing, cause like, I was never like a person for birthdays myself. But I actually kind of like the idea that it's like, if you want to make a big thing of it, you have to make the big thing of it. You can't expect all of your friends to drop what they're doing because, it turns out your birthday is Friday or whatever, and now you have to get the cake and you gotta come up with some kind of party plan. Like, nah, if you want to do it, you gotta do it. Just let your friends know to show up when you can. I like the idea myself.
And what about you, Honk?
Okay, I had the same like knee-jerk reaction. Like, wait, what? If we're celebrating Jack's birthday, why does he have to bring the cake? If we're celebrating Jill's birthday, why does she have to bring the cake? And then when I thought about it, that lady says in the video, this way you only have to handle one birthday a year, your own. And I was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Because if you have a pretty large family, you have a lot of friends, you have neighbors, you have a lot of people you work with, good grief. There'd be birthdays 4 times a month, right? That's a lot of extra energy going into that. And I think it's more fun when I reflected on it. I think it's more fun to do your own birthday, and then you can just do nice little random surprises for people throughout the year.
I agree.
So I'm down for this. I'm down for this.
I definitely agreed with that. So yeah, the wisdom behind this, as Honk pointed out, is that you only have to provide for yourself on your day. So you don't have to provide, 3 times in March, 4 times in April, 2 times in June. You only have to provide once a year. So you don't really have to do too much heavy lifting. And I think that's a very smart way of handling it. Now, this isn't to say that, you won't get gifts from people. You definitely will. So what tends to happen is that they'll keep a record of people's birthdays. And if you're working for an office, for example, they'll be like, okay, well, tomorrow is Honk's birthday, so we're going to get her a gift. Or let's pass this card around for Honk, and we're going to sign it. And people are going to tell you happy birthday and such. But, it's just that they're not going to throw you a party. You're going to be expected to throw the party. Now, that being said, sometimes for a special occasion, like for a milestone birthday, surprise parties or other people throwing you parties, they aren't unheard of. They do happen, but they're not the norm, and they are by far the exception. So, what do you guys think about that?
Well, I mean, I think the lady in the video said like a 50th birthday was a thing that people would tend to throw parties for. And that's cool and all. It's just it's so ingrained because Iron and I are both Southern. And so like the notion, like I feel bad if it's someone's birthday that I care about and I didn't make a cake. Like I feel guilty, but now that I don't know, it would be a hard cultural shift, but I think it's probably a lot smarter the way the Dutch are doing things. I don't know though. That's the thing about people, isn't it? Sometimes we do things the way that we feel it needs to be done, even if that's not the smartest way to do it.
Yeah, tradition does have a really huge grasp on a lot of people, and habits, as they say, are very hard to break. And now we think of that in terms of bad habits, but also even things that aren't bad, or things that are neutral, or things that are good, are hard habits to break as well. And oftentimes I tell my students, I tell them that as humans, we tend to tie our learning experience to emotions. And so, for example, if you have a really, really good, a good experience, whatever you went through, whatever memory you have, whatever you learned, it's much more likely to stick with you. The same is true if you have a really bad experience as well. It's those neutral or those, experiences that we tend to forget. Well, the problem is that once you become conditioned, especially with something that's good, it's much harder to let it go. Because not only has it become ingrained in your psyche, not only have you been conditioned to do this, but also you have a lot of emotional baggage that comes with it. Like, for example, maybe with the holidays, maybe, you're used to having family Christmases. And so, as time, as you get older, you're used to, December 25th, it's time to celebrate Christmas. I'm going to see the family. We're going to have a big dinner, all this and all that. And that it kind of triggers something in you. So you expect that, and as time goes on, things change, people die off, people move away. And so maybe you don't have that big Christmas anymore. And so that first time it happens, you're going to feel sad. It's gonna be, if you didn't have external factors pushing you to do that, you likely wouldn't do that on your own. And the same is true with birthdays. If you're used to doing birthdays a certain way, the amount of emotional weight that comes with it, and the momentum that comes with doing something of tradition, it's going to be very, very hard to break out of that. It's going to feel unnatural. You're going to feel like a fish out of water. So I feel like it's as somebody outside the culture, it definitely it's not easy to get used to, but the more you're exposed to it, the easier it gets. And especially if if you're not in a situation where you can make that choice consciously. Like for me, for example, where I live at in my part of the world, people don't celebrate birthdays the way we do in the United States. And so, I had my great grandfather. He was in the Merchant Marines in the Second World War. And he had a very interesting way of teaching members in my family how to swim. And the way he would do it is, he's like, "Hey, let's go fishing on my boat." So you'd get in the boat with him, and he would take you out into the middle of a pond or a lake, and he'd push you off. If you want to live, you better swim. And it sounds horrible. It sounds very, very horrible, but you wouldn't believe how effective that was in teaching people how to swim. And likewise, I feel like there are a lot of things in life that work like that. You're getting pushed off. That's the best way to make the change. That's the best way to learn something, to pick it up. It's the best way to learn culture, and it's a great way to learn a new language as well. Not saying it's easy. It's definitely not easy, but it definitely is very effective.
Yeah. I it's a little off topic. Don't get me, Taco. Don't get me. But I see the things all the time, like the Rosetta Stone app and stuff on your phone, where it's just like, it's talking to you in Spanish and giving you pictures or whatever, and you're just like kind of supposed to guess or like intuit what it is. And I don't know, that just looks stressful to me. But I have my hang-ups. So I do have my hang-ups about being awkward, which is ironic because I am extremely awkward. You'd think I would vibe with it by now.
Well, things like Rosetta Stone can help. Things like Duolingo can help when you try to learn a language. Nothing beats full immersion. Nothing beats that. That's the best way to learn a language. Right now, I'm studying Indonesian. I'm trying my best to learn Indonesian, but I've never taken a formal class on Indonesian. I've never taken it. I don't have any books to teach me Indonesian or anything like that. And my Indonesian is better than in any other language I've taken formal classes on. So don't get me wrong, I do learn a bit from Duolingo. But that learning is only part of it. It's when it comes to language is a bit of a different beast than, say, learning math or learning history. Learning language, you actually have to not only remember the stuff, but you also have to apply it as well. And it's a lot like, I like to explain to my students, it's a lot like, lifting weights. You have to constantly do it. You have to constantly, put to use what you have so you can grow in it. But if you don't use what you have, you're going to lose it. If you don't use it, you lose it. And so Rosetta Stone can help you to build vocabulary. Duolingo can do that as well. It can help you to learn some syntax, some sentence structure, and maybe some basic grammar and some phrases. But you need to actually put yourself in a situation where you can use these things. Otherwise, you're going to be great when it comes to reading. You might be great when it comes to writing. Maybe even you're listening, but your speaking isn't going to be so great. And that's something I actually learned the hard way, because I tend to excel in learning dead languages. I know several languages, and of those languages I know, at least 3 of those languages are literary languages, and that's because I'm a better reader. But so yeah, there are advantages to using things like Duolingo and Rosetta Stone, but they can't be your be all end all. They can be a helpful tool along the way for the most part. but not in and of themselves.
So here's an off-the-cuff question, Mike. Is there a term that means a polyglot of dead languages?
That's actually
Is there
a
a
great
special
that's a
term
great
to
question.
describe you? Because if there's not, there should be.
I don't know about that, actually.
Don't you think?
I think there definitely should be. I will say there is such thing as a hyperpolyglot. One of my mentors, Dr. Thomas McElwin, he knows about 14 different languages. Multiple dead languages. He knows ancient Hebrew, ancient Greek, Arabic. Give me just a moment. Arabic, Latin. He knows several Native American languages because he's part Native American and he's an anthropologist and he works with Native American studies. He knows Turkish. He knows I forget the exact language, but there's several local languages in Turkish that he knows. Because he studied several small groups in Turkey, like the Bekteshi, the Alevis, and some more groups as well. And he knows several modern languages: Spanish, French, Dutch, and he currently lives in Finland, so he knows Finnish, and he has several Indonesian fans and supporters, so he knows Indonesian and by extension Malaysian as well. So. And a hyper polyglot, for those who don't know, I believe it's 10 languages or more.
I couldn't even. Oh my gosh. I wish I could, but I couldn't even.
Yeah. So the key there is to start early. So he started when his parents started teaching him French, because they're American, but if I remember correctly, their ancestors were French Huguenots. So they wanted their son to learn French as well. So he started like age 3 or 4 learning French. And when it comes to learning languages, the earlier you start, the better. And the more languages you learn, the easier it is to pick up another language. So if you can get that ball started, you can do that. All right, but that's actually pretty much it I had for this particular part. You guys have anything you want to add?
No, I'm good.
Oh, Jinx, you guys said it at the same time.
Yeah, he copies me. He does that. You got to watch him.
Yeah, and we got that little derail convo right after 5 minutes. I was about to be like, okay, guys, and like the fishing trip that Mike's talking about, I'm gonna reel this back in. But darn, I couldn't use it. You guys actually did it well. All right,
so this is kind of sum everything up. So essentially, when it comes to the Dutch approach to birthdays, you're going to want to handle your own birthday in your group and ask every group member to do that. But keep in mind, birthdays are an ingrained tradition, and depending on your culture, maybe even be a sacred tradition. So you might get some pushback, and so always be sure to talk to the people in your group and agree with each other on such. But there is a great wisdom and great advantages to doing this. Now, turning to our final point of discussion for today, is the Dutch approach to weddings. Now, this one actually, I like it. So, Dutch weddings are very simple. They try to keep, it as simple as possible in regards to cost and, pomp and circumstance. I hope I used that term correctly, by the way. So, they tend to keep everything very simple. There are 2 types of situations, if I remember correctly. One is an actual marriage, and the other is being in a recognized official relationship by the government.
Civil partnership or something like that.
Yeah,
something. I think that's what it was called.
Yeah, what we would call a civil partnership in the United States. I didn't get married in the United States. I got married in Indonesia. But I had a lot of friends to get married in the United States, and I could tell you that the costs can be astronomical. You got costs for the church, costs for, you have all this stuff that goes into it, all these traditions, all these customs and such. Like, for example, the rehearsal dinner, bachelor parties, bachelorette parties, what's the thing? What do you call it when, after the wedding party? You know what I'm talking about?
Honeymoon?
Oh, the reception.
Your reception. There we go. You have the wedding reception, and then you have all that stuff. But the Dutch don't do that. Now here in Indonesia, it's really hard to kind of generalize because Indonesia is a very culturally diverse place. It's a very much, in regards to culture, heterogeneous. But where I live, in Javanese culture, it's, when a man gets married, he's expected to pay for everything. He's expected to pay for the ceremony, and the ceremony is very simple, but it's tied to religion here. So you have to go to an office, and a government official will officiate over it, and essentially, you will make an agreement with the father of the bride, and you have witnesses there to acknowledge what's going on, who can testify that this is what happened, this is your agreement, and such. And then, after that, either the same day or the next day, or, in a relatively close time, usually there's going to be a wedding party in which guests usually from both the husband's family and the wife's family and their friends are going to come. Now, because I got married in Indonesia and I'm from a poor family, I didn't really have any family to come, but I did have some friends to come to my wedding. So most of our guests came from my wife's family and her friends. And what will tend to happen is that guests will bring you money or gifts of money or some practical gifts like, blankets and utensils, that type of thing. Not really so much, appliances and such. But now I didn't have a lot of money, so my party wasn't very big. In fact, it was probably more on the small side. But I ended up getting a good portion of that money back in the financial gifts that were given to my wife and I. But the wedding parties here can be very lavish and very extravagant. It can be seen as like a status symbol here. And so I could definitely appreciate the wisdom behind the Dutch approach to weddings. And
I totally get that because in the U.S. weddings are an entire industry, and it is crazy.
So what do you guys think about that?
Oh, I think it's amazing because the wedding industry in the U.S. is so ridiculous. People paying $30,000-$40,000 for a wedding, and it's weird because that social pressure is kind of there to have the big lavish thing. But good grief, you can buy all the furniture for your new apartment. You can put a down payment on a new car. You could do all kinds of things with that money. I have never understood why marriages in the U.S. are the way they are. Now I'm going to sound like a stick in the mud here, but you're just as married if you go to the courthouse and get a justice of the peace to sign a piece of paper for you. There just ain't no need. There just ain't no need.
Yeah. What do you think, Doc?
I am of the same mind to where, I like how the Dutch are like, when they do have their weddings and such, even if they want to go kind of like on the big moderate scale or whatever, is that when they go to invite people, it's like 10, 15 people for each party that they act. So it's people that I hear that number and I'm like, okay, yeah, see, that's that's like close friends, maybe alright friends, maybe one or two random coworkers, not so much random coworkers, but probably the coworkers you actually like. And these are all people you wouldn't mind having over at your house or something like that. And I'm like, no, you know how it is over here in America. We will there are people who will have, you want to do a wedding at a church. This church will fill up and there will still be more people standing around because there's not enough seats to actually do this because so many people got invited. I've been into enough dang weddings to where I knew I had more fingers on a hand than people I knew there, and I'm just like, what? Why are all of these people here? Like, there'd be times I was at weddings of people I actually knew, and it would be weird because like I know that they have a vague knowing of half these people. Like, they know them because, like, someone's mom knew them, or something like, it's like stuff like that. I've been to enough weddings to where someone would walk up to me, and like actually, when my sister got married, and I, went to that wedding, it's a prime example. Not even counting, cause, we're from Georgia, my sister married a guy from Texas, and so she had the wedding here. So there were like people from Texas coming there, but there were people who were part of my family who would come up to me and my sister and be like, "Oh, I haven't seen you two since you were barely walking." And I'm like, yeah, prime example. Why are you here? Why are you here if you have not seen us in some 20 years? Like, why? Why? But yeah, I love the idea of like just having just people you actually know at the actual wedding and not have to like cater and deal with all the other like problems that come with having like almost 3 digits worth of people here. And no, like Honkflap said, I also greatly dislike how expensive it is because like Honkflap said, when you get married, whether you go to a courthouse, sign a few papers, say a few things in front of the judge, you're just as married as if you spent like 2 weeks practicing at a church and spent enough to where you could have bought a small house in a rural town or something.
Yep, money don't make it stick better. That's just not how that works.
That's all money with America's divorce rate. That's all money you should have saved for the possible divorce later down the road.
Oh man. Well, in some countries it gets even worse. Friends from the Gulf countries, from Saudi Arabia, where weddings will cost, $50,000 to $100,000 that men have to take out loans just to get married. And they have very lavish wedding parties. They, you might have, 3,000-4,000 people coming. It's insane because that money could be better spent elsewhere. And that's a bit of an extreme example, but, it's an example nonetheless, that I think, many people struggle with from around the world. And another issue, not looking at the financial issue, is the cultural issue. I personally, I believe, consenting adults should do whatever they want to. But, there are some people who say, if you want to sleep with somebody, you need to be married. And, okay, that's cool or whatever, but if that's what you believe, then why are you making it so expensive for these people to get married? I mean, if you want people to do the right thing, then make it easy to do that. And I believe
well, that's a good point. Yeah.
I definitely believe in simplifying it. Simplifying, the procedure and also the cost as well. If people are in love, they should, if they want to spend the rest of their lives with each other, getting married should be easy for them to do. They shouldn't have to take out a second mortgage, shell a kidney, and, jump through hoops to do that. So, and I think so. I think that's definitely the case. And the same is true for, I don't know how complicated civil marriages? Is that what they call civil marriages?
Partnerships, yeah.
Civil partnerships. I'm not sure how complicated they are, but if that's the case, then, they need to be simplified too. But that's just my opinion on the situation. I would love to hear what you guys think about that.
Oh no, you raised the best point I've heard is that if you if you have a system of like propriety around premarital sex or something, then you should be incentivized to make small, inexpensive weddings the norm, so that as many people get married as they can, you know? I've known tons of people who never got married because they just felt like it was an out-of-reach thing. You know, like, oh, we need to save up money for the wedding or whatever. They're living together. They're saving up money for the wedding, and you go, like, on, you know, shopping for your wedding dress, and it costs $6,000. Jeez. I mean, and that's just the dress. Let's face it, you're not getting married at that point. So, yeah, you're 100% on that.
A dress you're only going to wear once, hopefully, by the way. So
No, I was just, when Mike was saying, it's like, oh, why is it, like, expensive to get married when you, and such like that. I know he was talking about Saudi Arabia, but just like, I'm like, here in America, my immediate thought is, I'm like, man, I wonder, because I'm sure this situation exists. I'm like, how many damn women are out there on OnlyFans making money to try to actually marry their wannabe husbands?
there's
I got a funny story. Actually, this is kind of a funny story, but I was a bridesmaid some 20 years ago in a wedding, right? And the dress was ridiculously expensive, the bridesmaid dress, right? And Ducko might remember this, either seeing me do it, or we weren't like together at that time. We were moving in the same circles. But anyway, I had this bridesmaid dress that cost an absolute arm and a leg. And after I got it, I was like, you know what? This dress is not going to sit in my closet for the rest of my life doing nothing after it cost that much money. So I would put on this bridesmaid dress and go to the grocery store. And I would put on this bridesmaid dress and wear it to college.
I do remember hearing the story. I like, didn't you have like a friend, what was her name, like Kelly or something? Oh, your friend in college. Didn't like both of you like at one point like go to one of the college days? You went to college both in like the formal dresses.
Yep.
I just attended classes regularly.
Yep. It's like, I gotta get some mileage
I guess you got
out
a
of this
thing going
thing,
after
man.
this, right? No. Just felt like wearing it.
Well, I mean, and that's just like a silly little thing I did, but that, just the bridesmaid dress was like $1,000. And it was like, if you're gonna, whoa, this is not a one-time use dress, you know? Well, I'm exaggerating. I think it was $750, and there were alterations. That kind of, I don't remember how much the alterations were.
No, I mean, still, back then, that's like used car money right there. Like, you could get a used car with that money.
Yeah. But it was so crazy, and it's like I think that was my way of mocking the wedding industry. Is I was like, well, I own it. I'm going to wear it. Yeah, I guess. So, yeah, I was rinsing around the grocery store buying coffee and milk and bread in a bridesmaid dress.
and
It cuts a heck of a figure in a small town, by the way. People thought I was a lunatic.
But you know, it's interesting because these things, they're actually having, you know, tremendous impacts on our society, because, you know, there are some cultures like Japan, for example, that are struggling with demographics. It's struggling with population. You know, young people don't want to get married anymore. And part of the reason is the cost. You know, the cost is astronomical. So more young people are starting to stay single. You know, and staying single, not having a significant other, not having kids. And so I'm not saying that all of this is because, you know, weddings are so expensive, but the cost is definitely part of it.
Yeah. I don't know. The 21st century is such utter chaos. I swear, this is just such chaos. Maybe that's true every time a millennia turns or something. Maybe when we went from 1,000 to 1,100, it was like the same way. But things are such freaking chaos. You would think that societies would be trying to organize themselves to simplify. People sane. I mean, that might be a hot take, but I don't know.
Hey.
Don't they say this? You've done a lot of that ancient history and theology, Mike. Wasn't it a thing like in 1000 and everything? Isn't there like a kind of millennial madness that hits?
Yeah,
there was. People get all apocalyptic, and then they get.
Yeah, well, at least in the European context, it was. So there was a belief that the second coming was going to happen in the year 1000. And in the United States, I remember this, and you probably remember this, in the year 2000, there was the whole Y2K thing. The whole Y2K craze, there was going to be an apocalyptic, shutdown due to a computer glitch. So, yeah, there's something there. Yeah. There is something there. Now, maybe that's a coincidence, or maybe there's something with our way of thinking that produces these things. It's hard to say. So, you guys have anything you would like to add?
No, I think that's about me. I'm pretty done yapping for once today. Once in my life.
Yeah, same, actually. I think I've said everything I planned on saying.
Yeah. So, the ultimate takeaway from here, you lovely guys, gals, non-binary pals, and waterfowls, that a great wedding doesn't have to be expensive. What makes a wedding great are the people involved. And if you can cut costs on a wedding, that money could be better put in other places. It can be used, for investing, a house. It can pay your bills, or hell, maybe it could even give you a nice honeymoon. So if you have the opportunity to, and your culture allows it, maybe consider trying to simplify, your cost and the way you approach weddings. And with that brings us to the end of our discussion of 3 Dutch tips to simplifying your life.
So the video that got us all talking about these things is called 5 Simple and Kind of Weird Dutch Habits to Simplify Your Life by an account named Simple Happy Zen. It's a great video, really interesting. Go take a look at it and leave it a thumbs up and such.
All right, guys, gals, non-binary pals, and waterfowls. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We're just getting started with this, so we don't know exactly how frequently we're going to do these, but we're going to do these frequently. So be on the lookout for the next episode sometime in the coming weeks. And until next time, fam, this is Big Mike.
And I've been Honkflap.
And I've been Iron Duck. Thanks for coming by.
We hope you guys and gals, non-binary pals, and waterfowls have a fantastic night, day, evening, morning, time zone, what have you. And until next time, fam, keep honking. Peace out.